So a little bit about me. I'm Julie Bjelland, and I am a licensed psychotherapist, and I specialize in high sensitivity. I'm the host of the HSP Podcast, and I have the HSP blog and lots of different resources. I created the sensitive empowerment community for highly sensitive people. And my website is very dedicated to helping sensitive people thrive. I'm also a highly sensitive person at the highest level of sensitivity myself. I've raised highly sensitive children, and I've been working for years with sensitive people. So it's really my mission to help you understand yourself and understand the trait and help you really thrive to your fullest potential. So a little bit about the trait. It's actually scientifically known as sensory processing sensitivity. We tend to call it the highly sensitive person, or HSP for short. And it is an innate trait, not a disorder. You are born with this trait. This is not a disorder. It's found in about 15 to 20% of the population. It's equal in gender, and we've found it in over 100 species and counting already. Now, there's a lot of research about this trait, actually. And we tend to be challenged by sensory overload, and we're going to talk more about that, as well as some of the brain differences. So some of the positives, I love to talk about the positive gifts of the trait. You can read micro expressions in body language that the majority of the population misses. You're more kind and compassionate and empathetic and empathic. You have more of an advanced awareness. You're more insightful. You're more intuitive. We're going to talk about that a little bit in understanding some of the brain differences. You tend to be the most creative people. You're good listeners. You tend to make others feel safe. And you have advanced problem-solving ability. You can really see a lot of different angles to understand situations and problem solving. So really tend to be very good at that because you have a lot of extra information, and you're more conscientious. So that's a beautiful trait to have right there. You evolved for a reason. This trait really did evolve for a reason. It was for the survival of the population. We needed a group of people with extra information that have these extra sensory abilities, highly intelligent, emotional intelligence, our ability to understand what's going on around us. We just have more information, and you're going to learn more about that. So here are some of the brain differences. You have more activation in the amygdala, and that increases the fight, flight, freeze response and also increased symptoms of anxiety. In fact, I believe that everyone with anxiety should be screened for the trait of high sensitivity, and I have a free sensitivity quiz I'll be sharing with you as well that you can take, and you can have others in your life take as well to see where you are on that scale. You have more activation in the insula, so that creates an increased conscious awareness, both internally and externally. You have a high level of conscious awareness. You tend to know, for example, you've probably had situations where you knew something was going on in your body before it even showed up on tests, on medical tests. You just have more awareness, and that is because of that advanced, more activation in the insula. You also have more activation in the brain mirror neurons. This is responsible for your increased empathy and deep feelings. With the brain mirror neurons, we're literally firing some of the same neurons as somebody that we're actually witnessing. So that's why it really feels like you're experiencing what somebody else feels, because you're firing some of the same neurons and you have more activation in that part of your brain. So that's real for you. So some of the challenges are that the world's not set up for sensitivity. That makes it challenging in lots of different ways. We have messages that something is wrong with sensitivity. Most of us grew up having that message. We live in a modern society that's very busy, on the go, a lot of societal expectations that you should just go, and not rest. And that doesn't work very well for sensitive people. The nervous system has more data to process. You just take in more information. If you think about the nervous system as being a container, HSPs might be putting in hundreds of cups of data into that container, whereas somebody without this trait only puts in a few cups. So that's why you need more rest and restoration, because you're actually taking in more information. You have to process those 100 cups of data. We can't just move through at this kind of pace or we won't be well physically or mentally. It is just a fact for us, especially those of us that are really high up on that scale of sensitivity. We really do need to have more rest, more downtime, and also challenges that no one taught us how to manage sensory overload or even what it was. That was something that was really fascinating to me, to understand what sensory overload is. And it can often be the culprit of anxiety, irritability, anger bursts. When you feel really overwhelmed, it can actually activate that fight, flight, freeze response. So maybe with sensory overload, sometimes you might feel like you just want to run away, you want to flee, or maybe you feel argumentative, maybe having anger bursts, challenges with patience and irritability. Sensory overload can be a real problem for sensitive people, and it's important to know more about that. So some tips to reduce overload: go out at off-peak hours so that you're not in crowds around tons of people all the time if possible. Advocate for quiet hours and spaces at home, at stores, at work, so that you actually have some quiet places to be.